Once my dad had his face deformed with some supposedly rejuvenating creams that ended up making him look like the hunchback of Notre Dame because we were in a square, but then some guys from a cream shop hooked him by telling him they were going to give him a free facial massage. So my dad accepted, but then when they finished we saw him and his mouth was crooked, one eye up and the other down. And he grabbed himself and looked in the mirror and let out an alpha male scream, and they asked the cream guys, "Oh, I'm going to stay like this forever." And the cream guys got scared because they didn't know what to do. Once my mom almost broke her back because of my dad had planted a maca in the garden of the house. So he called my mom and said, "Little thing, come to bed." And my mom came home, saw the maca all fragile and said, "Is this safe, Skinny?" And my dad was like, yeah, look." And he even swung, did somersaults with the maca, and the maca didn't fall. But then my mom goes, throws herself towards the maca and starts falling. Then my dad was like, "Oh gosh," and started laughing. But the good thing is that the maca wasn't that high and my mom only got a big bruise on her back, because if not. Once when I was a kid I thought that Coca-Cola was funnel cake and that's why it was black, because one day my dad went to buy a soda at the store and when he came back I said, "What is that? And why is it black?" Quote, and he said, "It's a cola flavored soda, Daddy." And I was like a kid, but then he said, "Do you want some?" And I told him no, because I wasn't dirty enough to go around drinking someone else's cola, but I don't think he understood what I was saying. So he grabbed a glass and poured himself some cola and said, "Oh, how delicious." And I almost threw up in front of him until one day they explained to me that it wasn't little funnel water. I drank it and became addicted to the soda. I once had a turtle named Manito and it was eaten by ants because my grandfather, Tornillo, gave it to me as a gift. But a few months later we left the turtle in an empty pool that we had, but I was 6 years old and I didn't know that if you left it without food or water, it could burst. So, I woke up the next morning to go to school and from afar I saw that Manito was very still. And when I got closer I saw like 10,400 ants covering its body and in my innocence I said, "Wow, how cute, they're covering it from the cold." But then my dad came and told me, "Manito is dead." And one time when my little brother was 6 years old, that guy had lice and they took him to the barber, but he embarrassed my dad because when they sat my brother in a chair, the barber, whose name was Juan, said, "How do you want the haircut?" And my dad said to Juan, "School haircut, please, they asked for it." And then my super intelligent brother comes in and says, "Yes, and because I have lice." And then everyone in the barber shop stares at him. And my dad makes this gesture to my brother and my stupid brother sees my dad's gestures and says, "No, Dad, I do have lice, you can't lie." And in the end they both got kicked out of the barber shop because of my brother's sleep. Forgive me, little girl. Once, my little cousin Tisk had his Clash Royale deleted and he started crying because his mom had told him to turn off the beans in 10 minutes because she was going to go out. But since T-Sock spent all day playing, he didn't listen to his parents. So that day, when his mom came home from the street, she saw that the beans were coal and yelled, "T-Sack, come over here." Oh, and Tisk goes and his mom snatches his phone and starts deleting Clash Royale and Tisk says crying, "No, Mom, why did you delete it? I was Sand 5. One time I got really worried because I thought I had cancer, because when I went to take a shower my hair always fell out and when I got out of the shower I dried my hair and it ended up on the towel. So I said, "No, little brother, I've lost everything by eating tacos." But since I thought I was going to go with God, I told the girl I liked that I loved her and that she should be my girlfriend, but she stopped me and I said, "Oh, no problem, I'm going to meet Chavo del Ocho and his neighborhood," but in the end I only had alopecia and they made fun of me at school. Who the cares, you piece of scum, you son of a. Surely when the doctor saw you were born. Once when I was a kid, I thought my dad was a magician because he would make gum appear to me out of nowhere and whenever I would say to him,
"Daddy, can you make me a bubble gum?" quote,
he would say,
"On the count of 3, a bubble gum will appear. 1, 2, 3. And the gum appeared. But over time I realized that he always bought the gum in advance and kept it in his pocket because he already knew that I was a gum eater. But one day I told him, "Hey daddy, get me a lollipop instead." And he told me he was just a magician and a gum specialist and that he couldn't do it. And the worst thing is that for more than 4 years he deceived me and I thought that he was a magician, but in the end it turned out that he wasn't.
I know my rights. I want my...
Once the ants were invading my room because I always left food lying around. Then, one day I had an idea that I thought would change the course of my room. And that is if I killed all the ants, but left one alive. I thought that the one alive would send a message to the nest that there had been a massacre in my room and they would never bother me again because they would be afraid. But it didn't work out the way I thought, because the next day I think that same ant that I left alive called like 5,739 of her friends to invade my room and take revenge. Oh, my God, Lord, save me. Once when I was at school she hit me hard against a post for waving like an idiot to my mom because she had gone to pick me up. But the worst part wasn't the hit, but right in front of me was the girl I liked and instead of helping me, she burst out laughing so loudly that even the birds got scared. And I was lying on the ground with the half-bent post. I said, "Everybody calm down, I train with Goku," and since that day they nicknamed me Iron Head. But the worst thing is that the post is still crooked. Once my nephew Mbappé almost ripped his brains out by pulling his hair because that guy was so poor that he told me, "Dude, I don't even have enough for chips, can you give me some work?" So I taught him how to edit videos, but the geek didn't even understand how to cut a clip. So he got frustrated and pulled his hair out in desperation, and every time he got an error he would yell, "I hate the Premiere." And I tried to calm him down, but in the end he ended up crying hugging the monitor. And in the end he learned and today he earns more than me. The useless guy went viral. Why can't I do anything right? One time, my poor little tail was on fire and smoking when I went to throw some tamarinds, because when I was 11 years old I ate 5 bags of Sabritas Takis, but I didn't know or think that the moment of truth would come when it was time to throw away the strawberries, and when I was already in the bathroom I was about to die, and even my mom from the living room said to me, "Son, what are you burning in the bathroom?" And I said, "Mom, help me, I ate 5 bags of Taki." And he tells me, "Who told you, kid? That's why I told you not to eat them." Single quote. And the truth is, in the end it was the last time I ate tacos, because I think I was traumatized. All the police, they're killing me. Once when I was born I cried a lot the first hour and my dad thought I was born sick and he used a masterful technique to make me stop crying because when I was in my mom's belly, he would tell me, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, chulo, daddy, 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 chocho." Quote, almost always. So that day, November 1st, which is my birthday, since I wouldn't stop crying, he asked the doctor if everything was okay and she told him yes, that it was normal. But then, since he didn't want me to cry, he grabbed me and said, "Daddy, daddy, daddy, chulo, daddy, daddy, chest." And he told me that at that moment I stopped crying and opened my eyes. Criminal mama.